Welcome, friends, to another edition of Adult Arts and Crafts with the Warren County Library. My name is Mary Ellen, and today I'm going to show you DIY pumpkins, 3 ways, and more. I've been looking on the internet for lots of ways to make some nice decorations for the fall, and every time I go in I find another one that I like. So I'm going to show you quite a few things today. I'm going to go very quick with the directions. So if you like one, great. If not, hang on. There might be something here that you can use for your holiday decoration too. So first one here, this one has a mystery inside. This is a toilet paper roll inside. So that one was a little bit of a mystery. So I'm going to show you decoupage on dollar store pumpkins. A lot of people are doing dollar store pumpkins into lots of different things, and I've never done decoupage before, so it's a perfect first time try if you want to try decoupage with holiday napkins on a styrofoam pumpkin. I'll be doing a book page pumpkin, so if you haven't done a book page project yet with a paperback book, I've done this before with vases, so you can see that on YouTube if you want to go back and watch that one. I'll show you very quickly today, step by step, how to make a pumpkin out of a book. I'm also going to show some little paper ones like this, so if you just have some scrapbook paper or some 8.5 by 11 paper that you don't mind copying onto, which is what this is, you can make some nice little pumpkins for your table or for your kids. I'm going to show a yarn pumpkin. This is a styrofoam ball with a hole inside, and you just feed the yarn through and through and through and make yourself a little pumpkin. I think that this would be a great idea for place cards on your holiday table for Thanksgiving. So let's see. I think I'm just going to dive right in, and I'm going to start with the one that's a little bit messy, which is the decoupage pumpkin. And we'll get going, and I'm going to walk you through these very, very quickly. So let's see. I see I have a note there. Hello, welcome. Glad to see that some folks are here. I'm going to see if I can see anything else. I see a couple people are watching. So here we go. I'm going to go down onto the table and show you how to start this decoupage pumpkin. So the pumpkins in the dollar store look just like this. There's scads of them there right now. So you can pick this up. All you need to do is pull out the little stem that's in there, and you have a nice surface to decoupage on. I will show you the one that I had shown you a minute ago. This was some leftover holiday napkins that I had. So you can see how this comes out in a matte finish, and this was from some other holiday napkins that I had, and I did this one with a glossy finish. So however you like to do it, I chose Mod Podge in both cases, and so here we go. The first thing you do is take your napkin, and a napkin is usually many layers of paper. So what you're going to do is find the second layer or even third layer of your pumpkin. So it's this white piece of paper behind there. You're going to tear that out. That's going to add too much bulk that you don't need, so we remove that first. Then when you look at your napkin, you'll see that those extra pieces of paper were held in with these perforations around the edge. You see these little dots here? Those are the perforations around the edge, and we really don't want those little dots to show up on our finished product. So what I did was I just sliced them off. I went around and cut off all around the outside, and this was a little bit more, this is probably 1.5 inches that I cut off around the outside of that particular napkin to remove those perforations. Then I cut my strips into, it looks like it's slightly more than 2 inches wide, and because it's going to be wrapping around the pumpkin, you want to see that it kind of goes from the top all the way to the bottom. Then you know you have a good size to work with. I found that I didn't want a lot of bulk on the top and the bottom, so I just took my scissors and just made a point on the top and the bottom. What you might also have noticed about these napkins is I chose an all-over pattern. If you choose a wild all-over pattern like this, you're not going to worry about seeing matching where the one line hits the next line. All right? So the way I approach the pumpkin, I'm going to do it on top of a plate because I don't want to get glue on my board, and you would use paper underneath or cardboard or something. I'm going to take my Mod Podge right out of the jar, grab some of it on my paintbrush, and I kind of follow the lines on the pumpkin. So I know that my strip is just about 2 inches wide. So I'm going to put about a 2-inch wide, slightly wider strip of the Mod Podge, which of course is glue, right onto the pumpkin. Then when I take my strip, lay down my brush. When I take my strip, I'm going to lay it right on top where the glue is, and that holds it down. I'm going to hold it right down to the bottom, and now it's attached. And now I can come back with my brush and just so carefully adhere the rest of the strip to the pumpkin. So you can see that there will be some creases, but they're not terrible. You can ease them in with the brush, and that will firmly glue this to the pumpkin. So now to go to the next one, I'm going to do the same thing. I know I'm going to have about a 2-inch strip. So I'm going to place this Mod Podge all the way around. I've just put one on, so I know pretty much what that strip size is going to look like. Let me grab my piece, and I'm going to lay it on here. And there we go. Taking my paintbrush. So this way, you're really not getting glue on you, if at all possible, because you're continuing to use the same brush that you put the glue on with. So there's just enough glue on the brush to hold the rest of the strip down. So I'm dipping back into my Mod Podge, and I'm going to put another strip on. You don't have to be very careful with this, and know that as you get it on the top as well as underneath, it will dry clear and it'll come out just fine. So I'll find another one that I had here. I'm going to put this right on the top, and then I'm going to pull it across and then stick it to the bottom. You see how simple that is? So it makes me think about trying some other decoupage. I know the pumpkin is forgiving, and it doesn't bother me at all that there are some creases showing. I know if I were doing this on something that was very flat, say it was, you know, onto a piece of glass or something like that, I wouldn't want to see these wrinkles. But on a pumpkin, it doesn't bother me in the least. So as you can see, as you build up and go around and around, you will cover your pumpkin. Now, once it's dry, if you decide you wanted a gloss, you could go back and put the glossy finish on it as well. But what I do is go as far as I can without having to touch it with my fingers, because once I get very, very gluey, I just set it down and let it dry and then pick it up and continue. So I actually got halfway around the whole pumpkin last time before I had to lay it down and continue on. So that is how you do the decoupage. Now, when it's fully dry, then you can decide how you want to put the top in it. I just cut with my knife. I cut around a circle. There already was a hole from the way it came from the dollar store. I just came in with a knife, a regular knife, and I just cut that hole a little bit bigger. Now, I could use a nice stick from outside. I actually we cut some branches down from a birch tree, and I think a birch stick was very pretty, and I actually like the natural leaves that were on it. Or another option was I took a bunch of jute twine and I rolled it in some Mod Podge and I twirled it around and laid it down to dry. And this looks very much like what you'd find on the top of a pumpkin. So you could put that in there. And the other one that I did that you see right here is just a cork. And the cork was shaped like this. And I took my X-Acto blade and I kind of pointed at the end like so that it would fit nicely into the hole. And I just added a silk flower and popped this in, and there you go. And it's ready for my table. And it was just a fun little project. I already had the napkins in the drawer, so there was no waste involved. You know, when you have over a company, you often have a few of these napkins left. And with 2 napkins, I was able to cover the entire dollar store pumpkin that was in styrofoam. So that was the first thing that I was going to show you. And let's see what's up next. I think I'll show you the book page pumpkin. Now it's very hard to see this open on the table like so, but I'll show you how I made it. As I said before, if you've seen my other videos with book page projects, you probably know the drill. But if you never have before, never tried it before, you might want to try it with a pumpkin because you can't go wrong with the shape of a pumpkin. It's quite simple. So I would take the cover off the book. That's a discard. And if you have a paperback, that's your easiest bet to do for this. And what you could do is you could actually draw your shape right on this front page, and you know that you'd be able to cut that size out of that book. What I prefer to do actually is trace my book onto a piece of paper and then try a couple of different drawings till I decide that I like one. So the example I was showing you is going to be on a smaller book. This was the template that I made for that smaller book. And what you do want to remember is you want to leave yourself a flat bottom so that your pumpkin will not be falling over, and it'll be very stable when it's sitting on the table. So this is why I have this much space on the bottom. So what you would do once you begin and you have drawn it, I'm going to mention that I actually like to keep my template about 1/4 of an inch in from the edge because it makes it easier to do if your book is quite thick. It's very hard sometimes to cut right into that center part. So I give myself a little bit of 1/4 of an inch on the inside. And what you could do then is take your knife, whatever type of knife you like to use. You could use an X-Acto blade that's very sharp and pointy like this. But oftentimes I find in these book projects, I might use a knife like this that is a little bit thicker because you can cut very deeply into a knife that you can extend like this. So as I say, I'm showing these projects rather quickly. So the next thing you would come to is your book would be cut entirely like so. And once it's cut like this, you can now go back, and if there's any jagged edges or pieces of paper sticking out, you could trim them off. But if you're doing a pumpkin, lumps and bumps really don't matter. So, you know, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's really a great project to start with as a pumpkin. If you want your pumpkin to have color on the outside, this is when you would paint it, when you have it in this position, because you could take your brush, as I did, I dipped it into acrylic paint and I just painted right down the sides like this, and you just let that paint soak into the pages. It's only going to soak in a little bit, but it's going to give you a hint of color all around the outside. What I did was I let it dry for a little while, but when it was damp, I fluffed it out a bit so that the pages would not stick together as it dried. Now the pages will eventually dry completely, and some of them may be stuck together. You can see you could sit it up like this to dry, and then what you want to do is come back and pretty much pretend you're playing cards and flip it open to release any of those pages that are stuck to each other. All right, So what you would do at this point, say it's been painted and you're ready to go, I would bend this book all the way around to itself and see if you can make the front meet the back. If you can, then you've probably got a very thick book and it's going to make a very full pumpkin. Do you see how that front page meets the back page? If you can do that with your book, I would probably put some glue on it here, hot glue, and hot glue the front page to the back page completely, and put some glue inside here and inside here in the bottom to seal it together. Now the trick that I found, if you don't have a full book, what you could do is do a half a book. So actually what I'm going to do is open this, bring this off the table again and show you in person so you can see that if you want to do this as a half a book, you could then put some cardboard across the back, and with the cardboard against the back, the front of your book will be much more fluffed out. It will be much more full. So I think it's very attractive, and then it can stand on a table, it can stand against a wall or on a shelf. And here you can see, if I bring these pages together, you can see that I painted them with acrylic paint. Now, you can't tell, I used a little yellow, I used a little orange, I used a little red. It basically came out like an orange shade. In this one, I put a natural stick inside. I kind of like that natural idea again with the natural leaves from outside still on it, but dried. Put a little bit of trim in there and tied it with a nice bow. So you see that is a very simple, completed pumpkin. If there are some lumps and bumps on it, that's fine, because that's what pumpkins look like in the natural world. All right, now I'm going to show you the paper pumpkins like this that I found online. They're really, really fun and simple to do, and I'll show you how you can make those. Go back to the table. So I was looking for some paper to make these with, and I didn't have the proper scrapbook paper that made sense to me. So here's a tip. All I did was I went to Google, and I Googled images, and I found a picture of pumpkins. Now, a trick you can use if you're looking for a picture to use for yourself, you can find copy-free art online. And one of the things sometimes I do is I'll Google a piece of fabric, and if I said pumpkin fabric, a picture of fabric would come up with pumpkins on it, and then you could use that as well. So that's just another tip for finding pictures and images to use in your own crafting for your own purposes. If you take something online that is not yours, you may run into copyright problems. So be careful that you're using copyright-free things, or you're not selling the things that you're making for yourself. So as you can see, I put a picture on one side and I duplicated the picture right here. And interestingly enough, I then ran it through the printer and I printed it also on the back. So what I have ended up with here is what if you had had a piece of scrapbook paper that has the picture on both sides. I think that gives your nicest look when you're making these pumpkins, to have the picture show up on both sides. So I take this picture, this piece of 8.5 by 11, and what I do is I just slice it down the center here. So as you can see now, I have the piece sliced in half, and I'm going to fold each half in half again. Now when I did this, I decided this was the size I wanted to cut for my pumpkins, because I didn't want to waste paper. So if you want to make a bigger pumpkin than this, you would have to have more paper. But I'm showing you with what you could make with one sheet, all right? So I have taken that sheet and I have put this underneath, and I'm taking another sheet and I'm doing that as well. Once you have, right now I have just the two pieces inside here. When you have the two pieces in here, I found it easiest for myself to staple these together so they do not shift. And then I grab the little drawing that I made, of a pumpkin shape. And I put it right down on here and traced it. Now you can see with this small shape, I can get 3 of these out of 1 piece of paper. And I'm going to use 2 of them to make this sized complete pumpkin. All right? So let's say I did that. And then I will bring these pieces over. Sorry. I have a lot of things going on here today. So here's the piece that has the drawing on it. And I will cut that out. Grab my scissors here. So when you're cutting this, you're going to end up with 2 complete pieces. And you're going to put them like this. When you do the second one, you're going to stack it on top of it. So let me show you what that looks like. So this is now 2 of those pieces stacked together. And all I did was I took my tacky glue, and while it's stacked, I really found that it was helpful to use a clip, a paper clip, or a clothespin, and actually apply the glue right down this edge, which I already have done, and then let it dry. So you can see here's one. It's got the glue, and I've just laid it down and I let it dry. Once you have 2 of those pieces done, which is what I have here, you can see, so there's 8 pieces showing of the pumpkin shape. Now I'm going to take this glue again. It's already been glued to itself, but now I'm going to take this glue and I'm going to glue it to the other half of the pumpkin. So let me put these 2 together. I don't want to get it on my board, so I'm being very careful. And I'm going to clamp this together. I really seem to need 3 hands to do this. There we go. And clamp this together. And make sure that's up tight. It's really an interesting process because now you let that one dry. And when it's dried, with both sides stuck together, when it's fully dried, you can fluff it out. And what you end up with is 16 pieces standing out. So you really kind of have to bend this out and fluff it out. And all I did here was take a little piece of my offray ribbon and trim it off, stick it to itself, and then I stuck my ribbon right inside. So they have a cute little stem on them. Now I think this might also work as a nice place card on your table. It's a nice little project. I didn't try it, but I was thinking of what if you printed out pictures of your family perhaps, or something you're thankful for, and then your decoration would have even more of a Thanksgiving part to it. The next one I'm going to show are the little yarn pumpkins, and in this case I've taken a number 3 styrofoam ball, and they're sold just like this. And what you want to do with that ball is you want to take a knife and you want to cut a piece off the top and the bottom. Number 1, you want it to be stable so it stands on the table and doesn't roll away. But you also want it to look like a pumpkin. I find that I had to cut a little bit more off of it to make it look like a pumpkin than I thought. The first one I made, I did do that, but it looks more like an apple. So I just want to mention to you that you want to trim a little bit of the top and a little bit of the bottom. Now the only difficult thing on this part would be that you have to carve a hole in the center. If you have the ability to do that with a knife, I have a handy husband who had a drill nearby, And so I was very lucky to hand it to him, and he drilled that hole for me. What I want to make clear is I want that hole to be a full inch wide. So if you are using a drill bit and you have the ability to do that, you want it to be an inch wide. I tried making one with a 1/2 inch hole as I was directed online, and it wasn't wide enough for my yarn to fit through. Because what you're going to then do is basically you're going to sew some yarn through and through that hole. So I happen to have a big plastic needle, and that's how I did it. If you didn't have a plastic needle, you could use something like a bobby pin, would be perfect, or maybe just a wire that's bent, that would work too. But in order to show you how I did this on here, I will just pull the yarn through. And what I did was I just left the raw edge inside the ball. You can see the raw edge is inside the ball. And as I come through with the yarn on the needle, I just do the first one and cover that raw edge, and then just continue sewing around and around. Now, I would suggest, as I do with sewing, I would not start with the yarn that's so long that it's hard to handle. And I'd probably say usually your arm's length is a good length for something like that. But because this yarn is doubled, you might do 2 arm lengths. And you see, as you keep going, it fills up and fills up and fills up. When your yarn runs out and you need another piece, I just tied a knot and just kept going. So that was really no problem at all. So let's see, what do we have left? I think what we have left is our mysterious toilet paper roll, which is this. And this one is as well. So I thought this was kind of cool because I happen to have a lot of fabric around the house, and some of it does look like holiday fabric, Halloween fabric, or Thanksgiving type of fabric. And so I tried this. And let me show you how it's made by taking this one apart. So this is just a little decorative piece that you could gather with your silk leaves or your fake corn. So when I take this apart, you'll see that it is just a roll of toilet paper. And what you do is you unroll some of the paper and then roll it around here at least 10 times to give it a little bit of width to it, so it has a little bit of a belly. And then your fabric is a 20-inch square of fabric. I'll lay it down here. It's hard to show you on this particular camera that I have, but when you lay it down, you take each corner and just poke it in. And I'm going to poke in the next corner and the next bit and the next bit. And so if you can do this pretty carefully and then fluff it out a little bit, it ends up looking like a pumpkin. And then all you have to do is put your decorative leaves or a flower inside. And this looks really cute. Anywhere you put it on the table and part of your centerpiece, maybe in your kitchen, or you could even leave it on the back of the toilet, because when you need it and when the holiday is over, all you need to do is unravel it, and there you've got your roll of toilet paper to use less. So I hope one of these items is something you might try for your holidays. Let me know if you think they were good ideas, or if you have ideas of something we should be trying. And remember that this is all about being thankful, and most of all, I'm thankful for you guys for coming to these programs. So have yourself a happy Halloween and a very, very thankful Thanksgiving. I'll see you next time on Adult Arts and Crafts. Thanks so much for coming. If there's any questions, leave them in the box underneath, and I'll answer them as soon as possible. See you next time.